Hello, and welcome to a new edition of True Audio Files. Special edition of Vinyl Haul, where we've got the 2023 April edition of Record Store Day, not the Black Friday yet, of course. And I hope you had a great Record Store Day. I'd like to kind of go over the stuff that I got today and some details of what I chose, why I chose what I chose. First thing I want to do, though, is I want to start off with showing you some of the swag that I got while I was at my local record store. Couple of stickers to start off. First one I really like here. I like all of them, actually. But any other ones I'm showing you, there's some that I'm not showing. But I like this. My favorite holiday, made-up holiday, is Record Store Day. Very fun. Another really fun one here. Your car may be nicer, but you should see my record collection. I think that one is going on my car, without a doubt. Also got a couple of stickers. One is a sticker for Iggy Pop's new album, which if you don't have the album yet and you're an Iggy Pop fan, shame on you. It's a great album. Grab it. And then a sticker for Cream Magazine. They have started publishing that magazine again. I want to say they stopped publishing that, I want to say late 80s, early 90s, but it may be later than that. I don't know. Maybe some of you will know, but they started publishing it again, so that's a promo sticker for Cream Magazine. Also, got a promo button for the 2023 ambassadors for Record Store Day, Jason Isbell and Amanda Shires. So, fun little button there. Then, Dogfish Head Beer produces a Record Store Day poster every year. This year's no different. This is the new Record Store Day poster. Kind of fun with some record bees made out of records. Maybe they're B-sides. And then last, certainly not least, if Metallica didn't do enough self-publishing and promoting for their latest album, they couldn't stop with what they did. They made a Record Store Day bag with the promotion of their 72 months record that just came out, or album that came out last week, I think it was. If you don't have it and you like Metallica, you should pick that one up as well, because it's actually very good also. All right, so I'm going to talk a little bit about why I chose what I chose for Record Store Day purchases. When I first made my initial list, what I usually do is I like to make an initial list of all the stuff that I'm interested in for Record Store Day, and take a look and kind of see what I can whittle down and things like that. And when I did it this time around, it's probably the longest list I've ever made for Record Store Day. And I had to make a lot of tough choices because I just couldn't justify spending the amount of money that it was going to cost to get everything that was going to be on my list. So I had to whittle down a lot of stuff I didn't want to whittle down. Some examples of that, just so you'll know, if you don't see it in these, because you won't, obviously, because I didn't get them. But like the Paul McCartney, Red Rose Speedway, the Ringo Starr release, the Bill Evans, I think it was an Allman Brothers. There was Keith Richards' Greatest Hits, Death's Greatest Hits, Stevie Nicks' live album, Muddy Waters' live albums. As a general rule, also, I should probably back up a little bit and say I would kind of a rule of thumb for Record Store Day releases, just so I can kind of have an easier decision on what to buy. And that is, number one, tend to avoid picture discs. There are rare exceptions to any of these rules that I have, but try to avoid picture discs, and I try to avoid live albums, but more specifically, live albums that have never been released before, or I should say lost tapes found. Because generally speaking, my experience has been, if those are especially like exclusive Record Store Day titles, they generally don't sound very good, so I have stopped purchasing those. So there are some exceptions to the rule in what I've purchased today, but those are some of the examples of some of the stuff that I wanted to get that I kind of took off the list, just because I had a list of, I think, about 30 records, and I had to whittle it down, and I put a little bit of a tap on it and said my maximum is going to be 20 records. So here are the 20 records I chose. Maybe not the same ones you would have chosen, but I'd be very curious to hear what you have to say in the comment section below about what you grabbed. So here we go. First up, Duran Duran, Rio Carnival or Carnival. It's basically remixes or different versions of songs off the Rio album, like Rio, Hungry Like the Wolf, things like that. I think it's limited to 10,000. I have not heard these versions of these songs, so that should be a good listen there. This is an interesting one. A lot of them are. Part of the reason why they stayed on my list. But it's basically Ramones' Pleasant Dreams, the New York mixes. So these are different mixes of the songs that were on the original album, Pleasant Dreams. And this supposedly is the original intended artwork for the album before they changed it. So another kind of cool factor on this one, for me anyways, is one of my favorite, if not my favorite, cutting engineer. Cut the lacquers for this, Joe from Sterling down in Nashville. So that'll be awesome. I would not be surprised also if another person, I'd have to kind of look at the notes, had a little hand in this that I really like, Bill Inglot. He's a great guy in the industry. This is the one that I was somewhat surprised about getting, and I'm very excited that I was able to get it because I believe there were only 800 of them pressed. So it is Porcupine Tree, and it's IADWXT. It's basically 2 songs from the sessions of In Absentia and 2 songs from the sessions from Dead Wing that weren't on the album proper, but they were on kind of like the deluxe editions of these albums that came out. This is basically, I think this is the first time. Yeah, it says unreleased on vinyl. So kind of cool for that. Like to check that out. I have a vague recollection of really liking those songs that they have on that EP. Next one is a flashback to, I believe, my just barely post high school days. It definitely post actually a few years past post, but not to date myself or anything. But it is PM Dawn, the Bliss album. I forgot the name of it, and there's obviously a long title after that too, but I really like this album. It's kind of a smooth R&B, but I think it's a little bit out of the ordinary for those types of slow R&B because I'm generally not a fan of slow R&B and music, but really like this album. It was a huge hit back in the mid to early 90s, I think it was, and this is pressed on orange colored vinyl. So next one up, this is one of those ones that I was very skeptical and I almost took it off my list, but I decided to keep it. And it's Charlie Parker, the long lost Bird Live Afro Cubop recordings. I don't know how long lost they are because my understanding is these were taken from CD files of a now out of print CD set or multiple CDs and combined together for the first time the way they are. And what's really great about this, though, is there's some great musicians on here. There's Dizzy Gillespie, Milt Jackson, Art Blakey, Kenny Clark. A lot of great musicians on here. I have also seen a YouTube video on this, and the person that reviewed it said that, it sounded pretty decent, especially for its age. It's not a modern sounding recording, but so usually my experience with Charlie Parker, well, not usually, it's definitely a mixed bag. More times than not, though, it's been awful sounding recordings. So I am hopeful that this one is not an awful sounding recording. From all indications, it sounds like it's going to be a decent record. So I look forward to that if that's the case. Next up, this is The Donnas Early Singles Collection. It's 1995 to 1999. What's really kind of cool about this is it's got some covers on it. It's also got some originals, but it's got like Speeding Back to My Baby, which is an Ace Frehley song. I think it was on his solo album. Strutter from Kiss. Also School's Out by Alice Cooper and Keep on Loving You by REO Speedwagon. I have all of their proper albums. I don't believe I've got any of these songs, though, because I think these came out before their albums. So very, very cool pickup. Next up is Willie Dixon. Willie Dixon is one of my favorite blues musicians, and There's an album of his, and the name of the album is escaping me now. I think it came out in like the late 70s, early 80s. But one of my favorite blues albums of all times. I have not heard this one, but this is a reissue of the 1973 album, Catalyst. And it's on a yellow and clear, cloudy vinyl, which I think it looks like it could be a very cool looking vinyl. So hopefully it's pressed well and sounds good. Next up, Don't Shoot Me, I'm Only the Piano Player by Elton John. What makes this one unique and special is it's got an entire record of sessions demos that were made. And it's on a special red marble vinyl, which is, I believe, exclusive for Record Store Day. I think it says so right down here. I believe they are going to be reissuing this later in a variant that's not going to be that special color, but from the pictures I've seen of the examples of the colored vinyl on this, it looks like it's going to be pretty cool. So I'm a sucker for colored vinyl. My next up is one that is the one I was probably looking most forward to for Record Store Day today. And that is Miles Davis, Turnaround. It's basically songs from the complete On the Corner sessions. On the Corner is one of my favorite Miles Davis albums, actually. I think I even like it a lot more, not a lot more, but even more than his like earlier work that was not fusion. But I do really like this one quite a bit. It's got 4 tracks that are on the complete On the Corner box set that only came out on CD. So first time that these are on vinyl, and it's on sky blue vinyl. So another colored variation, which is always nice. Next up, David Byrne from the Talking Heads, The Catherine Wheel. This is the complete score from the Broadway musical, or Broadway production of The Catherine Wheel. This is the first time the complete score is going to be available on vinyl, and it's 73 minutes of music, and first time on vinyl. And I also believe that the guy Joe from Sterling, my favorite, cut this one as well. So I think it's going to sound great because of that. And I do not know if I've ever heard the complete score. I have the single record version of that already, but I don't have the complete score. So I look forward to hearing the stuff I've not heard before. Next one is another one of those live records that I took exception to on this. And a part of this is because there wasn't a lot of jazz stuff besides this live stuff that's out this time around, besides like the Miles Davis and the Charlie Parker that I showed before. And I think there's a Bill Evans as well. But anyway, it's Art Blakey and the Jazz Messengers at the Jazz Workshop 1970. So some cool songs around about midnight's on here. Autumn in New York, some really good tunes that I look forward to checking out soon, hopefully. Lot to listen to. So next one up is Scott Weiland. For those of you who don't know, Scott Weiland was the lead singer for Stone Temple Pilots. Stone Temple Pilots were probably one of my favorite bands from the early to mid 90s. And this is his first solo album called 12 Bar Blues. And I think there's 3 additional tracks that were unreleased that are on this as well. This one also, they say it was cut from the original master tapes. This one was cut again by Joe from Sterling, and amazing work he always does. So I really am looking forward to hearing this one and how good that one sounds. That might be an audiophile level recording, so I hope so. Fingers crossed that it sounds great. Next one up is one that I predict is going to probably be the #1 album this week on Billboard. Mainly because I would say at least half of the people that came out to Record Store Day this week, or for this Record Store Day, probably came out for this record. Potentially more of them. Or maybe even solely came out for this record. And that's Taylor Swift. And this is Folklore, the Long Pond Studio Sessions. So this was, I believe, recorded live in the studio with musicians, where the original album they kind of had to do piecemeal because of COVID. So this one is kind of different variations of those songs. And it's basically, I think it's the entire Folklore album, which is album 2 or 3 times ago. But 2 record set. It's got an embossed cover, which is nice. 75,000 of these were pressed. And I can tell you, when I was in line today, I would say at least half of the probably 100 people that were there were probably there solely for this record. So I really think that this one is going to be a huge seller for this week. And again, probably, possibly the number one record for the week. And probably the largest amount of pressings pressed for a release for Record Store Day. And that's an exclusive for Record Store Day. So be very interested to see where that one goes. Next up, got Carole King, the Legendary Demos. Basically demos of the songs that she wrote in the 60s all the way up through Tapestry. You know, there's You Make Me Feel Like a Natural Woman, there's Tapestry, there's You've Got a Friend. So a lot of great demo songs on here that I am looking very much forward to hearing the demo versions of. It's on ivory clear vinyl. So, very cool. Next one up, semi-guilty pleasure here, but sort of not, too. Mr. Big, their self-titled first album, has Addicted to That Rush. Really love Mr. Big. I think I've liked every album I've heard of theirs. I know of 3 of the albums that I have heard. I think there's a 4th one, but this has Addicted to That Rush, which I really like, but I love Billy Sheehan. I love Paul Gilbert on guitars. I actually really, really like Eric Martin on vocals. Really like this album, and I think I might have an original copy, but I had to get the reissue. It's on solid blue vinyl, and hopefully it sounds great. It says it's includes an individually numbered sleeve and jacket, but I am not seeing the numbering on this jacket. But I also don't have my glasses on, so maybe it's here and I just don't see it. So next up, for you punk fans out there, Off. For those who don't know, I believe this has some guys from Dead Kennedys on this, and Keith Morris is the lead vocalist on this. And this is basically, I don't know if it's outtakes necessarily, but it's basically songs from the sessions of their last full-length release, and this is an EP. Looks like there's maybe 8 songs. So, and one thing I just noticed is one side is 33 RPM and one side is 45 RPM. So I got to make sure and keep an eye out for that. It looks like there's short versions on the 45 RPM side and then the full versions on the 33 RPM side. So be interesting to check that one out and see what that sounds like and see what the differences are. Next up, B.B. King, Blues is King. This is another live recording, but I believe this is a reissue of something that's been previously released, so that helps me decide to get these instead, as opposed to the lost tape recordings and long lost live recording. So I'm looking forward to checking this one out, as usual. All right, I gotta stop saying that because it's obvious. I wouldn't have bought the records if I wasn't looking forward to listening to them, right? So another live album, although this is, I believe, a live in studio recording, so a little bit different. Norah Jones, and this is basically her Little Broken Hearts album, recorded live in studio. Her stuff always is well recorded, and I know that this one, again, was cut by Joe at Sterling, so I feel that this is going to sound great as well, and I really liked that album, Little Broken Hearts, also. So it'll be hopefully a great purchase. This one I have low expectations of, but it might sound great, but I love the band. And that's Husker Du. For those of you who don't know who they are, punk band from the 80s. One of the guys from that is Bob Mould, who's done a lot of great solo work and had a band called Sugar in the 90s, which was a great band also. And this is basically early live recordings. So early live recordings from the early 80s makes me very hesitant and not sure how good they're going to sound, but hopefully they sound good. Hopefully. Low expectations. Last, definitely not least, because definitely one of the ones I was most intrigued about for this Record Store Day, and that is Eric Carr, Rockology. Now, this came out, when I looked it up on Apple Records, I think it came, or Apple Music, not Apple Records. It looked like it came out in 1999, but that was after his death. But my understanding, or not my understanding, but it looks like this is basically that album with some probably five or six bonus tracks, maybe a couple more. But basically, it was written by Eric Carr of Kiss, the drummer for Kiss in the 80s into the early 90s, and actually Bruce Kulick, who was the guitarist for Kiss in the mid to late 80s into the early 90s as well. And also Adam Mitchell, who does a lot of co-writing. I think he did a lot of co-writing with Kiss in the 80s. But produced and mixed by Bruce Kulick as well. And I really thought what intrigued me the most, I think, with this is the cover looks a lot like the Kiss solo albums that came out in the late 70s. So that was the kind of look I think they were going for with this album cover. The records look like they're very, very cool, pressed on very cool color vinyl. And I've heard some of this, and I do like it. I like some of the work that Bruce Kulick has done, and I think Bruce and Eric did a good job on the songs I've heard off of this. And so very, very interesting release, that to say the least. And I really like what they did with the cover. And this appears to be a Record Store Day exclusive. So that is everything I got for today. I would really love to hear what you guys got. You know, what you're the most excited about for Record Store Day releases this time around. And like I said, there were a bunch that I didn't get that I named off already. There's a few more, like the U2. I think there's a U2 release and a Pearl Jam, and a few others that I just wanted to get, but I just had to. I had a tighter budget that I want, and I spent more than I normally spend on Record Store Day, anyways, and I just didn't want to go that crazy. That I could, because I could have easily spent or bought another 8 to 10 albums easily. But those are the ones I hand selected. Would love to hear what you think about my selections. Love to hear about what you guys picked up that you really liked, and what you're intending to buy maybe as well, if you haven't already done so. So that is my video for this week. I hope you liked it. If you're a subscriber, thank you. If you aren't a subscriber, please subscribe to my channel. I would love to see you subscribe. Hit the like button if you liked the video. Hit that alert bell so you know when my new videos come out. Check me on social media. There are links in the description for you. And that is everything I have for this week. I hope you had a great Record Store Day, and I hope you have a great rest of the week. Thanks a lot. Have a great one.